Hello everybody, DBZ Assets here. Today we are back with another animation analysis video, and of course we're going to be taking a look at LR Int Cell. A bunch of you guys have been requesting for me to take a look at him and Gohan, which by the way may or may not also be the video that's going to be up later or is already up right now. I don't know what order the videos are going to be uploaded in, but either way they'll both be up today, so look forward to that. But we're going to be taking a look at Int Cell's super attack animations. By the way, thank you so much to Mr. DBZ World for allowing me to use the footage for his video. I wanted to use the original, more like bigger versions of these super attacks, right? Where you could see a little bit more happening in these as well, which also thank you DBZ World for this video too, because you also uploaded this. But unfortunately these are kind of low quality, and again, that's not his fault, that's just Twitter quality being stinky and obviously re-uploading it from Twitter. But these ones look a lot more higher quality just because the video is in actual HD. So even though you can't see as much on the side, I would rather you actually see what's going on in the super attack. So we are going to use this video rather than the JP ones. We're going to be using the global one. So I apologize, it's a little bit slimmer, but we'll be able to see what's going on a little bit more easier. As well, one other thing that we do need to keep in mind before we start this video up is that this unit did drop in 2019. Again, coming up on almost a year now, or I'm sorry, 3 years rather, excuse me. It'll be the anniversary is what I meant to say of this unit soon. But yeah, crazy to think these units came out 3 years ago. So obviously that is something to keep in mind as we take a look at the animations for this unit. Of course, I always do like to take age into consideration for these things, but of course, you know, I do want to take a look at as well, like what would be in modern day essays, what they would change, what they would add, right? Maybe some things that didn't age as well in these super attacks. So let's go ahead and watch these through at regular speed one time. Sorry, I need to mute the audio for myself. That literally scared me. And then we will take a look at them in the slowed down speed. Obviously, we'll also take a quick look at the Cell Juniors, because they were the unfeatured unit for this unit, and they're already there, so like we might as well, right? Very simple super attack. All right, so I will say, compared to Gohan, interestingly enough, I feel like even though Cell does suffer from a lot of the same things that Super Saiyan 1 Gohan's essays do for sure, I feel like a lot of the stuff in Cell's Super Saiyan, almost said Super Saiyan 1, his perfect Cell rather than super perfect Cell, excuse me. I feel like a lot of the things in his base form are a lot higher quality in terms of the essays than Gohan's. I don't know why, but it just kind of feels that way to me for sure. The transformation, ironically enough, is a lot worse than Gohan's, I feel like. I don't think it's bad, but it definitely doesn't feel as crazy cool to me as Gohan's does for sure. And this super, I believe, is also taken from fighters, if I'm not mistaken. So there is also that too. Thank you for destroying the planet, my guy. I really do appreciate that. All right, so we now have the 18 key here, which, funny enough, I think I prefer the 12 key for this guy. If I am being so bold to say so. Unless these are flipped, because I feel like that should be the... Oh, no, I'm tripping. That's the active skill. My bad. This is the 18 key super. I've not seen this guy active skill in so long. I forgot. But yeah, no, this is the 18 key super. That's right. Where it's obviously supposed to be like he takes out Trunks, right? And then obviously the 12 key. That's why I was going to say that looked really weird out of order. Yeah, no, that's the active skill. I was going to say, because this is part of the active skill, but this felt like more of a super attack. I don't know. I'm tripping. Either way, though, let's go ahead and take a look at these guys from the beginning. So these Cell Junior essays, I will say, are quite simple, right? There isn't really a lot going on in them. Oops, I didn't mean to make that full screen. My bad. There isn't really like too much that is like going on in them. They are basically like, wow, those speed lines are pretty low quality though. It is basically just a bunch of little PNGs kind of flying around the screen, right? I suppose that kind of makes sense for what this unit is, because obviously it's just a bunch of these little bugs, you know, kind of flying around and doing their thing. But like for real here, like there is literally no movement on these guys whatsoever. They kind of fly in and then they all sort of just stick the same pose and fly forward. This one especially in that pose flying forward. You look so goofy. I will say, I feel like if this was more of a modern day essay, I think that there would be a little bit more animation on these guys for sure. But I don't necessarily know if this looks that crazy out of the ordinary, because if I'm being honest, I feel like the Cell Juniors would be the characters to sort of move in that very odd kind of way, right? And end up, you know, like looking so goofy like that. I feel like it sort of lends to their character a little bit, but maybe that is just sort of me trying to make something out of nothing that's there, right? Either way, this is pretty cool. Obviously, the first Cell Junior, or what I presume is the first Cell Junior, because he's obviously in that pose, sort of flies forward, which is cool that they keep the same pose for him. Obviously, we have a quick punch forward. We have the other Cell Junior fly in and give a little uppercut here. This essay goes so fast, so it's hard to like get in between the different sections here. There is a very noticeable fade on this guy, even though I definitely like the angle that they try and take here, right? Where he's sort of like flying from under and then swooping up. I definitely wish that there was a little bit more, because this almost makes it feel like a slow-mo, like, you know, in cartoons when they're like, you know, and then they punch the bad guy or whatever, right? It's kind of what it makes it feel like, when obviously it's just supposed to be like one fluid movement. So I definitely feel like there would be a little bit less of that if this was for today. But yeah, this is pretty cool. Obviously, they kind of get away with just using PNGs here because this is so quick, and they can just kind of have the little guys flying in back and forth. So again, this like lack of animation in this essay, I feel like is a little bit more excused. Oh, I didn't even know he was doing the special beam cannon. That's funny. Obviously, it's a little bit more excused because it sort of fits the Cell Juniors characters a little bit more, I feel like. Why did they fade there? Again, I feel like this is like unnecessary, right? If we take a look here, I feel like they could have just transitioned from one frame to another rather than doing the fade. I don't think they need to like represent the movement like that. I don't know. Very weird. The Kamehameha looks alright. And then obviously we have the special beam cannon, which actually looks pretty cool. Although I will say it definitely doesn't really look like it's moving that much. Like this is literally just his fingers are glowing, and it is just the solid PNG rather than them making it like rotate like how they do nowadays, right? This does look a little bit better here where they have it sort of moving, right? This definitely makes it feel a lot more like it's rotating. I don't know why they didn't do that when it's launching from his finger. They even bothered to animate like the actual edge of it, like this would be like a screw, right? I don't know why they didn't do that before, but this clash of colors is very cool. Unfortunately, this explosion effect is definitely very reused and very like old. I do like the colors on this, but it's just kind of like a basic Dokkan explosion. Nothing crazy, but definitely not a bad super attack, right? And again, I think it kind of fits the Cell Juniors. All right, so we obviously cut to Cell's 12 key here. I think that this is a nice, very good establishing shot, right? Obviously, Cell is super cocky, right? So it's really cool that the first thing that you see is him looking down on you. Kind of fits for his character, right? I think this is also a very good shot too. Obviously, we have Cell teleport away from this shot. This is a really cool way that they do this teleport, by the way. I feel like I have not seen a teleport this good, right? Like a lot of the time they do the teleports really good in the essays, especially the modern essays. But this is one that I don't think I've ever seen recreated to this high quality, right? Where they have like the... They kind of emphasize, right, that you can still see his face and a little bit of his body as the rest of him is sort of beginning to disappear until he actually fully disappears. I don't know. I think that looks really, really good for sure. The way that they're able to capture that. And then we have a very lackluster teleport in, which I know not everything can be perfect, but wow, he's just like... Oh, I'm a ghost. Oh, psych, I'm blurry. Oh, I'm here. This kick does not feel crazy impactful. It does definitely help that they sort of push the enemy off screen and they have the screen shake like this. But obviously the fade to white and then him flying away, I don't know. It doesn't feel like crazy good, especially you're so impressed by that beginning shot, and then seeing this kind of crummy sprite come on the screen is a little bit of a Debbie Downer. But obviously when they're doing the far away shots, they have the sprites look a little bit more like that. We have him crack into the rock, which I definitely like this. Obviously, rather than him just slamming into the rock, he actually breaks off a piece, and it would sort of be like if the shape of a being hit the side of a rock in the beginning, or the top of it, rather, was still there. The beginning, in the beginning, right? The top of it was still there for that. This is an interesting, there's a lot of fade to whites here, but this is an interesting angle for sure as he sort of flies through the rock. That's actually really cool. I feel like that would be great for when God Vegeta rather, excuse me, beats up Broly in the ice caps, right? Isn't there a part in this? I'm literally typing slashes. Where like Broly or Vegeta, I actually can't remember now. I'm hitting the wrong key, that's why it's doing that. But isn't there a part where they fly through like the ice caps like this? I think that would definitely work cool for that. Yeah, that's definitely a very interesting shot. I like that a lot. Interesting that there is a lot less focus on Cell though here, because that was like, I don't know if I would say that that was more of the enemy sprite flying through the rocks than it was Cell. It definitely felt like it. But it was definitely like more of a focus on it. Like Cell's interaction there was a lot quicker in the beginning for sure than all of that happening afterward. Then obviously we have Cell teleport in and a quick kick up. This is definitely a better way to do a kick if you're going to have it do far away as well, right? They have the white fade here, right? Or the white fade. Yeah, the white fade in rather, excuse me. And then we have the very quick kick up, right, with obviously a lot of motion there. And I think that that is definitely a good way to do a transition from one like scene to another while having the kick still feel pretty impactful. And by the way, we actually have a good example of fade on an asset here. I cannot believe it. This looks like his leg is vibrating, right? And that actually looks correct, right, in the way that his leg is moving. That looks good, rather than fading between assets like this. That looks pretty good, and I definitely like this shot because they could just have the asset fly down like that little mini one, but it's cool that they sort of zoom into his face even though it is one PNG. My man comes in with a WWE move and slams the enemy to the ground. Wow, I did not notice how many, holy cow, how many white fades were in this particular SA. Very interesting. Yeah, so we obviously have the puff of smoke here, and we transition into the 18 key. I like this shot a lot of Cell sort of flying forward here, by the way. The shot I feel like is pretty iconic, at least for me. Definitely very memorable for this one. Also, this is definitely a very cool way to emulate the enemy sort of flying forward, right? They sort of get a little bit blurry as they're coming forward, right? You can see the motion lines forming, right? And then obviously you sort of go right through them because it's like they're moving past you, right? I think that that is definitely a really cool effect. I love the way that they're able to capture that for the beginning part of this. I almost kind of wish that then you got like a, I don't know, maybe like a back perspective or something, because it's kind of funny that they just transitioned to the side perspective with him elbowing the enemy. I feel like, I don't know, because it's like, again, they set you up for something so cool, and then it's just like, oh, okay. I don't know. Maybe that's just me nitpicking again, which, I mean, that is the whole point of this series. So, regardless, we have a very nice, clean asset of Cell here. Definitely a lot better than the kind of stinky sprites of him for sure. We have the enemy fly away again, and Cell... oh, yeah, that was not great. That was definitely not a great elbow for sure. Not only does this already look kind of awkward, but, like, there is not a lot of impact, right? Does Cell even move his arm down? Yeah, his arm definitely moves down a little bit there, but it's not really that much to make it feel that impactful. They look very goofy, and that pose also just like very stupid. The explosion effect also feels a little bit out of place there. I'm sure it's just to show emphasis, but they use like an explosion like it's like a key blast or something like that rather than it hitting the enemy there, which is a little bit weird. The other thing that I wanted to comment on too is that it is kind of funny. They do this shot and then they cut when they could just have it like follow the sprite. I don't know. It's just kind of weird that they don't just follow the sprite through and just have the background move. I feel like that would have been easier to animate, but maybe I'm incorrect on that one. Alright, so we have the enemy obviously fly away after the elbow until we have Cell slide in here. I always really like this shot. Even though I think that the, like, when he finally is there, he doesn't look crazy good, but I definitely like the motion lines that they use for this part. I almost feel like they have him fade into full view a little bit too soon. I think he should have been a little bit more transparent for a little bit more of the duration of that. But yeah, then we have this kind of low quality asset of Cell a little bit, but obviously him just standing there. And then a very quick cut to a close-up of him as he, I believe, gets ready to, yeah, punch away the enemy. Very interesting, too. They also fade here. Why? What's the point? He's already just snapping his head. I don't know why they fade there. It just makes it look not that great. This is also kind of an interesting angle, right? Because obviously he's sort of punching the enemy a bunch off screen like this, right? I definitely don't think that his fist looks bad. It does look a little bit awkward moving like this in slow-mo, but in actual motion it looks okay. Again, there's a little bit more fade, but I feel like it works better for this scene too. Let's see this in full motion, actually. I kind of wish that that part actually was first person, because I feel like if that part was in first person, that would look a lot cooler if right here was in first person with him going like, basically doing the Kenshiro, right? I feel like that would look really good in a first person perspective. But anyway, obviously we have him wind up the hand that was in the back, right? And then have that fist punch forward immediately. This is also, it feels weird, and I don't think it's because of Cell this time. I think because they put the impact point here for this particular part, it kind of makes it feel awkward. Like, why here? You know what I mean? Like, why at this part? Because isn't he punching them in this scene, right? Like, yeah, he's punching them away, right? Like, even if this was one sprite, like, obviously DBZ World is fighting, I believe it's Boss Rush for this, or maybe Infinite Dragon Ball History, but the regular sprite would be in the middle of where these two are, right? So he's clearly punching them. Why do they put the impact effect here? I feel like that's what makes this one a little bit more awkward. It's not even Cell himself. They fly up to the sky, and this is definitely my favorite shot easily from this part. I think for most people it probably is. This is cool too because you kind of don't expect it, right? They're sort of just flying away into the clouds, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen? You know, are they just going to cut or something? Psych! There's the Cell Game Arena, and then there is Cell himself getting ready to charge up the Kamehameha. I really like the lighting effects on this too. They did a good job with that for sure. It's like less of a ball and more like an actual shining glow in his hand, which I think is really, really cool. Alright, so obviously we have this very nice back shot. You're sort of at like the ground level looking up at Cell. A transition to his actual card art here. And then we have this really cool shot. I remember the first time I saw this, I was like, I love this. I love that they decided to sort of bathe him in the actual key that he's surrounded by here, right? It is a really, really cool shot for sure. Obviously transitioning from that white to seeing Cell bathed in that color. You have the actual Kamehameha beams sort of spinning around Cell here, right? You can actually see them moving around him, right? There. Oh, wow, that transition is very interesting. I never noticed that they did the transition like that. Why do they zoom into his thigh? Or, not his thigh. Wait, no. Yes. That's a weird transition. Because I love this part, right? Like, I think that this part looks great with them, like, even kind of pulling back a little bit to then show, like, his body, right? Especially that they just have him kind of come into frame like that. I never noticed that they have it zoomed in there. Yeah, that is definitely his thighs, though. So weird that they zoom in on that and then they zoom out from that. Very weird. The shake on that looks good, though. Obviously, there's a little bit of shadow on Cell, which looks really good. The motion lines from him here, too, look really good. I think that the sort of, like, outline that they have, a little, like, ghost effect on him, looks really, really cool here. It is kind of weird because that looks so good. And then you transition to this sprite of Cell, which just kind of looks like Cell Blanco, you know, as the Kamehameha is flying up. But nonetheless, it still looks pretty cool. And then obviously we have the Ki Blast fly forward, fly up. And then this is cool that they actually give it a little bit of an arc to give it a little bit more life. And it flies off the planet. And it actually is a little bit of a different animation than Gohan's too, which is pretty cool. Alright, so we now are coming up on the active skill here. This part is really, really cool. We have the transformation animation first and foremost. This part is not so great. So obviously we have Semi-Perfect Cell Spit Up 18, which first of all, I hate to say this, but they did a fantastic job of making this particular screenshot basically look gross. This looks like how it looks in the anime, the weird slime that's on the ground. It looks how it looks in the anime. It looks disgusting in the anime. They did a good job of replicating it. However, it is kind of a shame that this section is almost like a glorified slideshow for the transformation animation, right? It is a lot less climactic than Gohan's is for sure, right? You have this shot of just Cell standing there stunned, right, with the motion lines, and then they just fade to white to have Cell powering up. and then expanding into Big Boy Cell. Normally, again, I wouldn't be a fan of the fade, but I honestly think it works fine here. This that face is also hilarious. But yeah, this definitely works a lot better for him expanding, for sure. But yeah, right? Then they have him sort of engulfed in white, right? They have this little boom effect, or excuse me, that says doom instead of saying boom, which I mean, I guess an explosion makes that sound too, but like just make it boom, bro. Anyway, we obviously have the cell sort of reforming, which also looks gross. But I never really thought that this transformation animation looked great. Obviously, you see this more frequently than Gohan's, but the fade here is really disgusting. Like, I don't know how that they would have accomplished this. I feel like maybe if this was a more modern essay, this would look a lot better than them just fading from one of this gross cell growing asset to the other one like this. Rather than, you know, again, it's just fading. It would be a little bit more of a good transition. Or maybe just like how it actually looks in the anime, unless it does look like that in the anime, which in my case, you know, or in that case, then, excuse me, you know, my bad. But, I don't know, it always just kind of tripped me up the way that it looked. But yeah, this part looks pretty good, with Cell obviously, like, expanding. They do a good job of him sort of, like, pulsating for this section, for sure, right? Like, the whole time he's sort of pulsating, and especially this section here where he's regrowing, right? They definitely do a good job of showing the grossness of the scene. But then they just sort of, like, awkwardly cut to his leg coming back into form with not a lot of, like, reforming, right? It is just sort of like, bam, he's back together again. And then, obviously, we have the cut to this shot, which is super cool. I like this shot a lot. With Cell just sort of standing there with the key enveloped around him, right? And that sort of like, he's back, baby, you know, little effect there. But I don't know. I never really was a fan of this one. I feel like they definitely could have done more for this. And for sure, right, I think that the color change is very awkward because obviously his transformation doesn't happen in this much of a quick succession in the anime. Obviously he's defeated, right, and then he reforms and then he comes back, right, and there's stuff that happens in between those scenes. But because they like kind of crammed it all into one animation, it just feels a little bit rushed, and it just doesn't, it feels kind of choppy, right? Like you're so used to these, like, oh, these colors, right, are very okay, you know, I see what's happening here. This is kind of like in Cell's mind, or sort of just like in an anime, like not really happening, but like also happening. It's just showing you what's going on with a cool background, and then it's like, oh, we're back to normal now. I don't know. It always just felt like a little bit of an awkward transformation for me. This is why I got tripped up, by the way, because I think DBZ World just edited this, that it faded from the active skill to, or the transformation rather, to the active skill, excuse me. That's why I was so tripped up. I was like, wait, what? This is no game. Alright, so this section. I think that this section looks really good, but again, I don't understand why they have fade, right? You can see some of the assets on his neck, right, and on his chest area fading in a little bit, right? His head stays the same, funny enough. You can, if you look at it really closely, you can kind of just see the head PNG standing still. I don't understand why they need to fade it, because they already have him moving just fine. I don't know, like maybe they just didn't want to animate those slight in-between frames, but I feel like with him just sort of growing like that, it's so weird to me. I don't know. The different fades in Cell's essay are very, very weird to me. I like this shot though. Cell looks very clean here for sure. I definitely like the quick hands slamming together for the Kamehameha as well. This is also a very nice angle as well. I almost wish that there was a little bit more in between this particular part, but I can't complain because I still think it looks fantastic. Obviously, it is a little bit of a trick of the eye with the quick cut that they do, but they have him pull his hands back, which looks really good, right? And then obviously, when it's getting close to Cell's body, they cut real quick, right, and have it sort of go to his face, right, which sort of your mind fills in the gaps of him pulling it back all the way and them showing his face. But very cool, definitely a very nice angle. I also found the lines in this part also always a little bit strange. This feels like a little bit more like cartoonish, or like a different animation style, I don't know, or like a different game. There's definitely a Dragon Ball game that kind of has this animation style. I can't put my finger on it what it is, but like where these thick black lines, I can't think of it. It'll come to me eventually. Or maybe just a game that looks like this. But yeah, obviously we have this shot where we're looking up from overhead, which is very cool. And then obviously we have the Kamehameha form in his hands. This is the part that I believe is taken from Fighters. Also, for some reason, this particular art style here gives me huge Buchigiri match vibes. I don't know why, but it just feels like a Buchigiri super. Alright, so we have Cell sort of bury his face into his shoulder there as we pan to a little bit of a more outward shot with the key going around him, which looks good. Obviously, the key around his back too, giving that little 3D effect. And actually, I never noticed this, but we also have, I would say that this is maybe not as good, but it definitely looks like a little bit of more rotoscoping here because you definitely feel like Cell's a little bit more 3D here, right? In the way that he's sort of turning his body a little bit. That's pretty cool. That is a very interesting way also, too. I just noticed to do him bringing his arms forward quicker. They have the white flash, right? And then his arms are even quicker, right? Like it kind of feels like the amount of time that would pass in between that is where his hands would be, but then that way they don't have to animate that, right? And your brain just kind of fills in the gaps there too. I feel bad that I keep talking about it because I feel like it's sort of annoying that I keep bringing it up, but I'm just analyzing what's on the screen here, bro. They fade the head again. I mean, I guess that is better than if they just had it snap there, but I still feel like there's a better way to do that. Again, a very nice transition here, right? They use that white sort of flare there to sort of mask the transition to him actually firing the beam forward, which is pretty cool. The beam looks very small there, but then obviously it transitions and you can see it's really big. I feel like the ball is a little bit too small there, but this is a super cool angle. Oh my gosh. The one thing that kind of stinks about this is that the asset of Cell right there changes super dramatically, and it looks really awkward when you actually notice it, right? Like the change from right, they try and mask it a little bit by having that white flash, but like when it goes from there to there, that feels super jarring on Cell specifically, for sure, because obviously they're trying to get a more correct angle for him. But the overall angle of this shot is just so nice. Really, really love that. That's like a full follow through of the camera there. I wish they did that more often. And the Kamehameha getting smaller as well, going away, looks great. Such a cool shot. We obviously have the Kamehameha come up forward towards the camera too, which looks great. Is this going to transition or just cut? Oh, okay, just cut. But nonetheless, I definitely always like this, where obviously this is sort of an alternate universe where Cell destroys the planet. And I think that this part looks really cool, obviously with the smoke effects there too. And all that's left is just the rubble and the galaxy. I always thought that the numbers came in a little bit too slow for this too. It's like, he blew it up. Oh, there's the damage. Okay. I always did like this part too, where the actual energy that envelops the planet too. I love how they have this sort of like go around, right? And the planet begins to glow a little bit more as it gets enveloped by this, right? And then obviously we have the blue sort of cover it like this. I definitely love the way that this looks. It looks really, really cool for sure. Very, very nice until it finally explodes. Definitely a good active skill for sure. Definitely very, very nice. Excuse me, I had to hydrate again. All right, so we are now on to our 12 key super here. We have a little bit of a stinky Cell asset here, unfortunately. Funny enough, I almost think besides the transformation animation, I can't decide between the transformation animation if I don't like that one more or if I don't like this one more, because this one kind of feels like they didn't try a lot. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. We have the fade of the assets here, right? When I feel like that also could have been like a good opportunity for a quick pose change. Some nice electricity effects though, for sure. And obviously then we have Cell move forward. Oh, again, that could have been a perfect opportunity for just like the change of pose. That looked good when I accidentally skipped between the fade frames. But anyway, we have Cell sort of throw his hand out there, and the Cybermen hitting the ground. It also looks kind of awkward, but that's also the sprite's fault, not really the animation's fault. This is a cool transition, though, the smoke into the white. I feel like if the card art didn't pop up there, the smoke would have just transitioned into maybe like this scene. But this is a very cool angle, obviously from behind Cell, when he then fires the beam, right? A very quick snap from Cell here as well to throw that forward too. Very interesting angle change as well. Look at that. Here, let me go back to that. Because you're kind of like facing the front of him, and then you're facing almost like a little bit ahead of him, or like above his head, right? Very interesting. Yeah, this looks so good. Like, look, there's no fade here, and this is only a couple of different pose changes, but it looks very fluid in full motion, and the motion lines there are perfect to symbolize the full, like, follow through of that. And there's even a little bit of fade out on him, too. That looks so good. Why have the weird fade? I don't understand. But anyway, motion lines, I like the way that this key blast looks at well. It looks very animated. And then, unfortunately, they just had the PNG sort of go bump, 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 and shake back and forth. But that is okay. And obviously it makes impact with the enemy. And this is a pretty cool angle as the smoke flies to the side. I definitely love that shot. Let's actually see, can we see that on the, oh, I'm almost actually like literally right there. Ow, my ears, I'm sorry. Yeah, that looks a lot cooler with the full frame. Look at how awesome that looks. Wow. Here, let's put that in the slow-mo real quick with just the full frame. That looks super nice with that full, you know, viewing box. There you go, of that. But yeah, very, very nice. I don't know. That also is like the shortest of all of his animations, I think. His transformation might be a little bit shorter than that one. But that 18 key is really short, especially compared to his 12 key animations. I don't know why the 18 key, or the 12 key rather, excuse me, for the transformation is what I meant to say. Excuse me, is the one that suffered so much. Very weird, considering the 18 key for the transformation looks really good. It's so weird that the 12 key is just kind of I don't know. Maybe they just didn't have enough attacks left. Either way, we have Cell flying forward, which, funny enough, this isn't the exact asset for this, obviously, because they remade it and made it higher quality. But this is just Tech Cell, which is kind of funny because it is always a little bit jarring for me because I understand that it's just the pose that he takes in the scene. But whenever I see a Dokkan card that, like, I recognize the art, and it's like the again, it's just the pose from the scene, but then I recognize what card it's from. I'm like, oh, it's just Tech Cell flag at me rather than part of INT Cell super attacks, if that makes sense. Anyhow, obviously we have Cell fly forward here with him pulsing a little bit to sort of represent him flying forward as he comes towards the camera. This shot does look pretty good, even though it is just a single PNG. I feel like it could have used a little bit more movement, but maybe if it was a more modern essay, it would have a little bit more movement on it. This is really cool, though. I definitely like the fade in and out here as Cell is about to fire off the key blast here, right? And I think this looks great. Look at the amazing lighting effects that they have on Cell for this, too. The sound effect is perfect. The boom, 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 boom. That's nice. But yeah, very, very good color job on Cell here as he fires off these individual key blasts. I think that this shot is really cool for sure. And definitely a very nice angle as well for this too. Definitely very, very cool with the quick fire offs there. Then obviously we have all of them go forward. I will say the only weird thing about this is they look like they're going sideways, right? But it kind of looks like when he's firing them towards the ground. That is a little bit awkward, but definitely not, like, you know, too jarring for sure. You probably wouldn't notice it if you're actually just watching the essay. Then obviously they sort of disappear from frame, which is cool because obviously this is sort of supposed to be like them leaving the frame, right? Like they're getting smaller, so they're sort of dissipating. Would have kind of liked it better maybe if it was like you could see the tail of them, right? Like it got bigger and then it went smaller as they disappeared off screen rather than just like completely going poof. But this part is really cool with them swirling around and them also spinning the camera. I think that is fantastic. I wish DM, slide into Cell's DMs, wasn't there because it kind of blocks how cool that part is. But yeah, I love this part where the key blasts sort of spin around the enemy sprite. Let's see that real quick just in regular motion, not in slow-mo. But yeah, that looks really cool. Definitely like the look of that. Oh, that's also a nice detail there, too. I don't know if I've seen that in any other part of this essay. Cell's wings actually flutter back a little bit here when he's firing off these blasts, right? Obviously, that makes sense since they're just kind of like loose attached to his body, right? When he's firing off these various key blasts, it's cool that they sort of look like that. It's also nice as well if we look at this in motion once again, right? You can see that these are actually coming in at different angles too, which is pretty cool as they're firing into the explosion, you know, that he created from the initial ones. And that explosion is pretty okay, but then it goes into a very nice explosion with obviously the smoke just billowing up there from the ground. We obviously have the card art cut in here. Look how much longer this is than the 12 key, by the way. Just want to point that out. I don't know why the 12 key was so long. Obviously, then this is the scene where he takes out Trunks. Very, very cool. Them sort of emulating him in the smoke where they kind of don't know that it's him, right? And obviously, it cuts through the smoke. This shot, when I saw this shot for the first time, when they first showed these essays, I was like, oh! That's good. That's real good. I love the way that this sort of comes through the smoke at this first-person perspective. And this is a transition that I wish they did more for Dokkan essays. They set up for a great fade transition from white, and then they just cut, right? But this is so good. The Ki Blast envelops the camera, and then they fade out. Just do that more. It's so easy. But yeah, looks really cool. Obviously, the sprite, unfortunately, for this one is kind of the one that takes the L here because we still have some debris coming off of the back of them. And obviously, this looks goofy, too, because, of course, this is a double-person sprite. But even when it's a single-person sprite, it still doesn't look good. Again, update the sprites, Bandai. Please, I'm begging you. But obviously, we have them fly back, and obviously we have the little smoke come off of them too. The blue effect in the background does look pretty nice, although I will say again, it is a little bit jarring because you kind of like takes you out of the scene a little bit. Again, I understand it's supposed to be that anime like ba-dum, like super dramatic effect, but you're kind of like, oh, we're in this weird galaxy space now. Oh, just kidding, we're back here. Also too, I'm not sure if this is just the assets being low quality or if they did this purposefully, but it does look purposefully to me that they decided to have Cell be a little bit faded out in the background, right, with his hand in the foreground. That's definitely pretty cool. Yeah, I think that that was purposeful because he definitely feels a lot more like he's supposed to then be like this like scale or size, like with this quality of assets here when it finally zooms out. And that looks really good. Definitely a very nice KO screen as well when you beat the enemy too, with the Ki flaring up there from his aura. But yeah, very, very cool stuff. I will say, ironically enough, I don't know, again, which order that these essay videos are coming out in, but I think that Cell might be first, so I guess you'll see a little sneak preview for Gohan in the regards of what I'm about to say, right? Ironically enough, I think overall, after watching these two animations back to back, I feel like Cell's 12 key animations are better, or 12 key, his untransformed, I keep calling untransformed 12 key for some reason. His untransformed animations are a lot better than Gohan's untransformed animations, but all of Gohan's transformed animations are so much better than Cell's transformed animations. I don't know why. It's just kind of particular to me that that's the way that they decided to do it. Very interesting that they kind of focused on them in those different ways. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this unit. I definitely think that overall Gohan may stand the test of time a little bit better, especially with his Super Saiyan 2 stuff. But I still think that the Cell is a very solid unit in the animation department. Definitely some very cool stuff that this guy brings to the table too, and I still think that he stands the test of time pretty well. He does show his age a little bit in certain scenes, but I definitely think that this guy will still be very visually appealing for a couple more years to come for sure. But again, let me know what you guys thought of this one in the comment section below. Look forward to more animation analysis videos, and until then, Dokkan Assets out. Peace.